our IELTS course, the second part of our task 1 essays, and here we will work on our process essay structure. Before, let's just, for people who are just watching the video, let's just look at the introductory part. As we know, our task 1 has 7 types. We have to spend 20 minutes and we have to write 150 words. In the process, you will be given some kind of stages of production or some kind of cycle of some events happening, and you will be asked to illustrate it. You will be asked to describe this thing in a written form. And as you know, we will have 3 parts in our essay. They are introduction, overview, and body paragraph. And here, let's start our essay with introduction. And in introduction, as you know, we have to paraphrase the topic. So when we're paraphrasing the topic, now we have to look at our own topic and see what we can do, what kind of words can we change. And here, as you see, the topic is saying the picture below shows how tomato ketchup is made, and we have to paraphrase it now. And now when we're paraphrasing, we have to use the structures that we learned to start to introduce the topic itself. So which is, this is the structure is for us. And as you see, we have the structure. Given is the illustration which presents data concerning, and this structure is always valid for our task 1 essays, and only thing that changes is this thing, because it can be illustration, it can be bar chart, it can be map, it can be line graph. So we just change this word depending on what type of essay we are writing, and other words don't change, and the structure will stay the same. Given is illustration which presents data concerning, and as you see here, we are using inversion here and passive voice, and here we are using relative clause, and we're using good vocabulary to improve our lexical resource, increase our lexical resource score from there. And after this, you just continue. And there they said how tomato ketchup is made. So we have to change the structure itself to get higher score, and we use the structure of the. And as you see, we wrote the production process of tomato ketchup. So that's the end of our introduction. We don't have to give any other information, and that will be the end of introduction, and we will move on to overview or summary here. In summary overview, as you know, we have to give one sentence, which will be general picture of things happening, and second sentence analysis may be optional. You don't have to write it if you don't want to include it here, and we just have to write here. And as you see, we wrote overview, general information. In general information, we have to include the number of stages in this process, and in analysis, you have to group the stages, and it's actually optional. And in this stage, what you have to do is you have to categorize them, divide them into, or group them into categories, sub-procedures, to make it manageable to write our body paragraph, and then to make it understandable concerning what is happening in this process and what is being completed. And let's just start our structure, and we have beginning introductory structures that you have to memorize, and the structure is so as you see, we always have to start our introduction with a summary with overall, what stands out is that, and then you just continue your information. So in our situation, we have 15 stages of ketchup production. You can see, and you can learn these stages, and we will write 15 stages. And as you see, we wrote overall, what stands out is that the given process is constituted of 15 consecutive stages. And in this part, as you see, only thing that you have to do is also a template. The only thing that you have to change here to modify, to adapt this structure to your essay is change the number of stages here, and it will be clear. So you just have to copy this part and just change the number of stages here. And the point of doing this thing is, you may be asking why I'm not paraphrasing your structure, why I'm just using the thing, and why am I copying the thing that you are using. The reason will be, so when I sort of, like I said it a lot of times before, this writing is not a game of essays. It's not a game of, or it's not a, like, it's not a, the point is not writing essays. The point is not showing your skills. The point is managing the time. You will be given 1 hour. It may seem like a lot of time, but after your exam, after you're exhausted after listening and reading, you will need to come up with new ideas for your task 2, and task 2 is way more important. I know a lot of students who just go there even with structures that I gave, and will not be able to finish the essay. And the reason why it's because we have problem with time constraints. And if you're gonna think about everything and write everything yourself, you're gonna spend time and energy, mental energy, to do this. So that's why what we have to do is we have to guarantee that you will be able to finish your essay within 1 hour. Your essays within 1 hour. And the only way to guarantee is just through templates. If you memorize templates, it's going to be easier to write because you're not going to think about it. You're not going to spend time to come up with ideas. So you're just going to write the structure, and whatever you have to give in your main parts of essay, which is main part, which is body paragraphs, both in task 1 and task 2, you will be showing your own skills. So when it comes to introduction, overview, introduction and summary of task 2, you have to, and the beginning of the body paragraphs, you have to trust the person, you have to trust your teacher, and you have to use the structures that your teacher is using so that you will save time. It's all about saving time. Imagine you just give great essay but not finished, or you just give good essay but finished. Good essay was finished, completed structure will gain more score. So that's why you have to guarantee from the beginning of your IELTS preparation, you have to guarantee that you will handle this process perfectly, and you will be able to write all essay. You'll be able to write both essays within 1 hour. And here, the same thing works. Here we just say in introduction also, here, if it's some kind of production process, you can just simply change this word. It can be production process of tea, the production process of bricks, the production process of cement, the production process of anything. It can be olive oils, it can be anything. But if it's natural stage, well, we have to include here that in process we have 2 types. It's man-made and natural, or semi-natural and semi-man-made. So they are totally different things, because natural tends to repeat itself. It just happens in cycles. So we will be working on natural processes in the next lesson. So today we will just start with the easiest one, which is man-made process, production of some product. And it will be as you gain confidence in this part, as you understand what to do in this part. As you saw, we wrote the first part of our overview, which is general information, number of stages. We wrote it, and then we have to give analysis. And in analysis, what we have to do is we have to start the beginning structure again. So the structure is and as you see, another feature which is worth mentioning may be that is our main structure for the second sentence of our summary. So I'll just put it here, 1, and this goes 1, and the second is here, and to go there. So, and here what you have to pay attention to is, as you saw, as with other essays, if you watched other videos regarding line graph, bar chart, the starting structures are the same. And in this part, we have again template for production, man-made structures. So the structure is And as you saw, I also give you a template here. If you are describing some kind of production of some sort of material or a product, the structure is quite good. And as you see, we're saying given steps can be categorized into 3 separate sub-procedures, and these are the names. So what you have to do, well, it's analysis and it's creative process. You can separate them into like 4 or 2 procedures if you wish. Like, it doesn't depend on the exact category. It depends on your thinking patterns and on how you want to approach your body paragraphs. This sub-procedures will be our body paragraphs in our essay. So, and it should make logical sense too. That's why you have, when you're separating them into sub-procedures, you have to be a bit careful. For example, in this part in our ketchup essay, as you see, we have three columns of processes, and they almost perfectly match the sub-procedure part. And if you look at the first part, from picking to like putting them in container, what they're mainly doing is they are preparing the ingredient for production process. So we can just simply say preparing the ingredient. After preparing the ingredient, they are cooking the ketchup. So which I say preparing the. So in this part, I just want to change the word. So we will just write, instead of preparing, we'll write processing, because preparing is like, it's like growing, but processing is just working on it. So it's just mostly what is mostly done is they're working on the ingredients. That's why it's processing the ingredients, and we have preparing the substance. So it may not be visible here. It's preparing the substance. And the last part, as you see, as substance is ready, they're pouring it into bottle, they're labeling it, so it will be packaging and delivery. And as you see, it may not be that clear what we did in analysis grouping stages, which is really optional. If you don't want to write, you don't have to write it. So you are gonna, if you didn't understand this part, you're gonna consult with your own teacher, or you're gonna come to me to ask questions. And if you have any problems with it, you can just leave it in comments, and we will try to explain it in more details in next video lessons. And as you see, that was the end of our overview summary, and we wrote introduction and summary here. We wrote 3 sentences, and after this we move on to body paragraph of our essay. Now let's continue our essay process with body paragraphs. And in body paragraphs, what you have to do is you have to give your categories, your sub-processes in separate body paragraphs. For example, in our situation, we divided them into 3 sub-processes. So sub-procedures, we have to give them in 3 separate body paragraphs. And the advantage of it is that if you're giving them in separate parts, it's going to be manageable for you. It's going to be easier for you to write. And in addition to that, it's going to be really, it's going to be easier for the person who is reading it to understand. So that's why it's better idea to divide them into little parts. And there, when we are doing it, we have to give these processes one by one in order. And when we are doing it, we can, well, as you saw, we are. So let me just write it here. We already categorized the body paragraph, meaning we divided them into separate categories. And in addition to this, we can group this information. And grouping here, it's verb, like group information. Grouping means here, what you have to do is you have to give 2 or 3 stages, or 1 or 2, like more than 2 stages in one sentence. It will be grouping, and you will get higher score. Well, grouping makes your essay more complex, so you have to try to group information, which I will explain in this part. And here, the point of the importance of conjunctions, connectors will really improve here, because we're writing process and we have to include the stage. We have to show what kind of stage are we talking about. So that's why I'm just going to write, before we start, I'm just going to write structures that we start with and that we continue with. So As you know, in other task 1 essays, we have to start with introductory structures, which were given before in previous lessons, and they are. And as you see, we use the structures to start our body paragraph before in previous essays too. They are regarding, concerning, with respect to, as regards, with regards to. We use them one by one, and in this part, what we have to pay attention to is how do we start our process. And here we have starting structures. And as you see, you can use the structure initially, first of all, in the first stage. The initial stage includes, and you have to put comma after them to start the first sentence and first stage of your essay. And after this, we have to come up with structures to continue the second, third, fourth stages of your essay, and they will be in this way. And as you see, we wrote then, following, next, after. You can use that also, following that and after that. These are quite simple and basic continuation structures of the body paragraph, and in addition to them, we have different structures, which are we can use more advanced structures like this is followed by, or we can simply say which is followed by. After which, having verb 3, its participle clause, and despite or in spite of structures, these are more complex structures which we will use in our body paragraphs now. And now here, we have to talk about how to end our body paragraphs, and we use the structures finally in the final stage. We can use the structures finally in the final stage at the end, structures to end and to give the last stage, the last step of our body paragraph. And now let's write this body paragraph together. And as you see, it starts with picking tomatoes, and we have to start our first body paragraph, and we start this body paragraph in this format, and we just start with starting phrases as regards the stages, involvement, and processing the ingredients. And as you see, we said as regards introducing structure to start our sentence, and we just said the processing the ingredient, which is our first body paragraph, and the first sub-procedures is coherence, cohesion, and this is actually template. The stages involved in something. So stage involved in this thing, or stage involved in that procedure. So after that, we just start with the first thing that happened there. We can say initially, it starts with. So we wrote, it starts with initially to increase our coherence cohesion score again, to give steps, to give stages of something happening. It starts with what? It starts with, they wrote, picking tomatoes and putting them in baskets. So we have to find better version of this thing, which can be collecting, which can be gathering, or better structure, better sentence, which is harvesting. Harvesting tomatoes. Harvesting tomatoes. And we stop here. And we can use, we have to give the next stage and the next step, and we have to use linkers to connect the sentence, and we use this is followed by. Yes, followed by. So as you see, we are using this followed by to increase coherence cohesion level, and then they wrote sorting them into good and bad ones. So we have to paraphrase it too. So we sort, we can say separate, we can say categorize, we can say different words. Let's just write separate here, followed by, and after followed by, always what you have to do is use ing or noun. So you have to write verb ing or noun. So I'm just gonna write this is followed by separating what? Separating them into high and low quality. Them into high and low quality ones. So you may be wondering, what is this ones? And ones is referring back to tomatoes. I just didn't want to repeat the word tomatoes again, so I just used the word ones. And this them is also referring to tomatoes. And as you see, in order to avoid, so most students think that to avoid repetition, you just have to use synonyms always. But what do you do if you don't have the words like synonym? You don't have synonym word for tomatoes or any other word. So you just have to use reference words like them, once in this kind of situations. And then after sorting, as you see, it was delivered to a place. So how can we continue? We can say after this, or if we want to make it even more complex, we can say after which. After which. And then you just continue. They are delivered. They are so delivered, sent, transported. Let's just use transported in this situation. Transported. And as you see, we wrote they are transported to. So it can be factory to factory. So we can make it even better by using relative clause again. Where, so I just used a red one here, it was a mistake. So factory where they are. So what are they doing here? So as you see, they are just removing the skin, seed, and stalk. So we just say, they're just saying like removing. Let's just use remove or peel off, or let's just eliminating. We can use different words. So let me just write here remove. They where are removed off. So removed off, it means like something is being removed off their skin, stalk, and seeds. It's removed off their skin, stalk, and seeds. And after this, as you see, these tomatoes are ready, and they just put them in container. And we just say finally, simply finally. We say tomatoes ready for use. So we say which are. So it's a relative clause, but if we say ready for use, it's the relative clause is hidden. Ready for use are place it into container. Let's say container. So the point is, I'm not using any articles here. I'm not saying a container. I'm not saying a factory. The reason for this is it is generalization. It can be any container. So we're not talking about a particular container. It's not the container. We're not talking about one container. It's not a container. So it says container in the meaning of general objects that is used for this kind of purpose. That's why I just didn't use any preposition here. And this will be the end actually of our first body paragraph, because we finished the processing the ingredient part, and then the next stage starts with the cooking or preparing the substance, preparing the liquid. So we stop here because it was our first body paragraph. We'll just write first body paragraph, and in the next part of the video we just continue with the second part of body paragraph, which is cooking or preparing the liquid or substance. Now let's continue with body paragraph 2, and we start our second sub-procedure with body paragraph 2, which is preparing the substance. So we should start first with the structures to begin our body paragraph, which as well as regarding, we can just use with respect to this time. As we see, we wrote with respect to the procedure of preparing the substance, and here with respect to it for coherence cohesion, like beginning connector, and the procedure of is the structure that we can always use in preparing the substance is the name of the sub-procedures that we named and that we are talking about. So we're going to only talk about this part now. It starts with, as you see, crushing the tomatoes. So we start with, first of all, initially, or we can just continue with structure of S. You can say S. Tomatoes are. And as you see, we wrote, with respect to the procedure of preparing the substance, as tomatoes are placed, and here we are using complex sentence here, as subject plus verb and subject plus verb. As tomatoes are placed, were put, were just dropped, you can say they are compressed into a liquid form. So I didn't want to use the word crushed again, and I just tried to find some synonyms. So you can say press it, you can say squeeze it, you can say crush the word itself. So, and I used passive voice here. They are compressed into liquid form, so it is liquid form, and I just add additional information, which is with the help of a special equipment, because if you add more details, you're going to get a higher score, and it's going to be more, well, you're going to write more words for your body paragraphs, and you will guarantee that you will exceed the limit of minimum word count, which is 150 words. And then you just, when you're looking at the pictures, you just you have to try to find some kind of intricate details that most people miss. If you give it, they will appreciate it, and they will think that you're a better candidate, you're more professional in this thing, and they just give you a higher score. And now after the crushing, as you see, they are adding some kind of substances, vinegar, salt, and sugar. So we can call them substances, we can call them spices, we can call them extra ingredients. Let's just say substances, or what can we say there? Let's just say substances for now, but we in the future or later we can come up with better synonyms. I couldn't find the synonyms now here. We could just simply say spices, but sugar is not a spice, so it's just going to be a bit risky here. So we say, I just want to continue here with structure following which. So I'm just using red because this is the structure, the connector worth noting. You have to pay attention to this and try to use it in your own essays too. Following which, and additional substances, sugar, salt, and vinegar are. So here we add it, mix it. So I don't have synonyms here, so we can just use simply add for now. But we don't need to add them here. Just now choose here. Let's explain. And then, as you're looking, they are boiling the they're closing the top of the substance and boiling it. So following, we can say it, or then simply then the top of the container is sealed and liquid. That's the example because we already introduced it for the liquid is, so they use boiled, heated, and the heat here. And then what they're trying to do is they are leaving it for 2 hours so that it will cool down. And with the final stage, and I wrote, in the final stage, ready tomato ketchup is left for 2 hours so that it cools down. So here I just didn't use any exceptional vocabulary, unfortunately, but you have to pay attention to the fact that when you're giving stages, when you're giving every single step in your process essay, you have to use passive voice. Is left, is done, is delivered. So you have to use passive voice as a general procedure here. And I'm just using the structure so that here, so that plus subject verb to show the purpose, which is a good structure here. So it cools down. Cools down is quite informal structure, quite informal word, but we just I couldn't find any other word here to replace it with. So that's the end of our body paragraph 2, and after this we move on to body paragraph 3. Our last sub procedure was called, well, delivering and packaging and delivery. So we have to start our third body paragraph talking about only packaging and delivery. And here the first thing that we have to do is start the structure. Let's just use with regards to this part. So I just use the word phase with regards to packaging and delivery phase. So this is our simple introduction for coherence cohesion reasons, and the phase will just start with initially, or first of all, we can just start like this. We can say it commences with what? It commences with pouring liquid, or instead of pouring liquid, we have to come up with a better vocabulary, better synonym of the word pouring. So I just cannot come up with better vocabulary here. I'm just going to use the words that they are using so that we will become more efficient. But you may go to Google, or you may just go to your dictionary and just find out some better synonyms instead of the word pouring. And as you see, I wrote, it commences with pouring the liquid into special bottles, after which, so I'm just using the structure after which, and after that we use, they are labeled, after which they are labeled with. And then said after which they are labeled with stickers showing all the relevant information about the product. So the word stickers may be a bit wrong here, and I use again the structure, passive voice structure. Showing is here participle clause, which gives us higher grammar range and accuracy score, all the relevant information about the product. And as you see in the next part, there's a manual quality control. There's a hand taking, picking, and just observing or monitoring the content or other details of the ketchup. So we have to say after that, or following that, or simply next, we can say, or we can use the word having. Having. So again, we can use the word structure having, structure having. So how do we use the structure having here? We can say, yeah. So in this part, let's say having made ready. So it's just not that great structure, but I have to write it now. So I just say having made ready, made them ready for consumption. Okay. I just completely improvised here. I said having made ready for consumption. So make ready, and so I mean mistake here, make ready. So having been made. Having been made is better structure here, correct or grammatically correct structure here. I'm trying to use past participle clause, and just I'm saying being ready, being made ready for consumption. I hope you understand the structure. For consumption, they go through manual quality control. So I'm just trying to add more information here. Manual. I'm just showing that there's a picture of hand, where I'm just trying to use relative clause here, where specialists monitor everything. So as to use also good structure here in order to make sure that there we have to change this structure with another word, because this is quite informal structure. So we can say instead of this, so we can simply say guarantee instead of make sure. Guarantees that there's no faulty product, meaning that there's no product that is like unsuitable for consumption or not good to consume. And as you see in the next part, they are packaged into boxes and they are delivered to a supermarket by truck, and where the customers buy it. So we have to say this in one sentence now. So we say at the end, or finally, or in the final stage, or in the final part. So let's just simply say finally. So I tried my best here. As you see, I said finally, so to show that it's like the end. The product is packaged into boxes, relative clause, which are then transported by lorry or truck, depending on American English, French English, which one would you just prefer, to supermarkets where, again, relative clause, customers purchase it and consume it with hamburgers and fries. Actually, that is the end of our last body paragraph, third body paragraph, and by this the essay will also end too, because some students ask, well, should we write conclusion now? No, we don't have to write conclusion. Well, conclusion is mainly the idea, your opinion on the topic. So we cannot write conclusion on task 1. We write summary on task 1. Actually, we wrote summary right after introduction. If you remember, it was overview. So after this body paragraph, after last body paragraph, after giving the last stage of the process, we just finish the essay and we'll just leave it as it is. Well, that's the end of our lesson. Thank you for watching the video. See you in the next lessons.